Today we will listen the story of a detective who had nothing to do, but nature was kind to him. The Missing Girl. The morning light filtered through the grimy blinds of Alex Rider's office, casting long stripes across his cluttered desk. The office was quiet, too quiet for his liking. He leaned back in his squeaky chair, his feet propped up on the desk, staring at the yellowing ceiling. Another slow day. Private detective in Los Angeles, Alex muttered to himself. Sounds glamorous. In reality, it's coffee-stained shirts and waiting for the phone to ring. He glanced at his desk, where a pile of unpaid bills sat mockingly beside an empty coffee mug. The faint hum of traffic outside was the only indication that the world was moving while Alex felt stuck in limbo. Work had been scarce lately, and the cases he had taken weren't exactly exciting. A missing cat here, a suspected cheating spouse there. He rubbed his temples, trying to shake off the creeping sense of failure. If something doesn't happen soon, I'll have to start taking those Find My Lost Sock cases, he said aloud, his voice tinged with self-deprecating humor. Just as the thought crossed his mind, the door to his office creaked open. Alex straightened in his chair, his instincts sharpening. A man stepped inside, his silhouette outlined by the harsh morning sun. The visitor was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a sleek black suit that seemed out of place against the peeling paint and worn carpet of Alex's office. His face was hard, his expression unreadable behind dark sunglasses. "Alex Rider?" the man asked, his voice low and steady. "Depends on who's asking," Alex replied, leaning back slightly, trying to project confidence despite the unease crawling up his spine. The man stepped forward, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. "The name's Ethan Ford," he said, reaching into his jacket. Alex tensed, his eyes tracking the movement. "Listen, Mr. Ford, if this is about your wife or your dog, Before Alex could finish, Ethan pulled out a revolver and pointed it directly at him. The sight of the weapon silenced Alex instantly. "Get up," Ethan ordered, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. Alex raised his hands slowly, his heart pounding. "Look, whatever this is, I'm sure we can talk out. There's no need for—" "I said, get up," Ethan interrupted, his tone sharp. Alex obeyed, rising slowly from his chair. He forced himself to stay calm, his mind racing for an angle, a way out. "All right, I'm up. Now, what's this about?" "Money. Revenge. You got the wrong guy if you think I'm sitting on some kind of fortune." Ethan gestured toward the door with the barrel of the gun. "You're coming with me." "Coming with you where?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with forced bravado. "To see Victor Crane," Ethan replied, his lips curling into a faint, humorless smile. The name hit Alex like a punch to the gut. Victor Crane. A name he hadn't heard in years, but one that carried weight. A lot of weight. Victor Crane wasn't just anybody. He was a notorious figure in Los Angeles, a man with deep pockets and deeper secrets. "Crane," Alex repeated, trying to mask the unease in his voice. "What does Victor Crane want with me?" "You'll find out soon enough," Ethan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Alex hesitated, considering his options. Running wasn't viable. Ethan had a gun, and from the way he held it, he seemed comfortable using it. "All right," Alex said finally, his hands still raised. "But for the record, this is not how I usually meet new clients." Ethan didn't respond, simply motioning for Alex to move toward the door. The pair made their way down the narrow hallway of the building. Alex's mind raced as they descended the stairs. Who was this Ethan Ford, and why was he playing errand boy for someone like Victor Crane? And why did Crane want to see him now, after all this time? Once outside, Ethan guided Alex to a sleek black car parked at the curb. The engine was running, and the tinted windows concealed whoever might be waiting inside. "Get in," Ethan ordered, opening the back door and gesturing with the gun. Alex slid into the car, his nerves on edge. The interior was as luxurious as it was intimidating, with leather seats and the faint smell of expensive cologne. As the door shut behind him, Alex glanced up to find himself face to face with Victor Crane. The man was older than Alex remembered, his hair streaked with gray, but his piercing eyes and commanding presence were unmistakable. Alex Rider, Crane said, his voice smooth and measured. It's been a while. Alex forced a thin smile. Victor Crane. Can't say I expected to see you today, or ever, for that matter. Crane leaned back in his seat, studying Alex with a predator's patience. You've been keeping busy, I hear. Depends on your definition of busy, Alex replied. But I'm guessing you didn't send your friend here to discuss my workload. Crane's lips twitched into a faint smile. You're right. I have a job for you, Ryder. One that requires a certain discretion. Alex raised an eyebrow. And if I say no? Crane's smile faded, and his eyes hardened. Let's just say that's not an option. Alex leaned back, his mind racing. Whatever this job was, it was bound to be trouble. But with a gun in play and Victor Crane calling the shots, it seemed trouble was the only thing on the menu. A sharp jolt roused Alex Rider from unconsciousness. His head throbbed as he squinted into the dim light of an unfamiliar room. The scent of aged wood and expensive leather filled his nose, and as his vision adjusted, he took in his surroundings. Walls adorned with antique oil paintings, a massive bookshelf crammed with leather-bound volumes, and a roaring fireplace casting flickering shadows across the opulent space. Alex groaned, rubbing his temples as he tried to piece together how he'd ended up here. The events of earlier came rushing back. Ethan Ford's revolver, the car ride, and the unsettling presence of Victor Crane. Now, he was in what could only be described as a mansion, a place dripping with wealth and menace. A door creaked open, and Victor Crane stepped inside, his tailored suit impeccable as always. In his hand was a crystal glass filled with amber liquid. He regarded Alex with a cool, almost amused expression. Glad to see you're awake, Victor said, taking a seat in a leather armchair opposite Alex. For a moment, I thought Ethan might have hit you too hard. Alex scowled, his fingers massaging the back of his neck. You've got a funny way of starting a business relationship, Crane. Care to explain why I'm here, or do you prefer to keep me guessing? Victor's lips curled into a faint smile. You're here because I need you. Desperately. Alex snorted. You. Desperate. That's a laugh. Victor's smile faded, and his tone turned serious. My daughter, Sophia, has been kidnapped. The words hit Alex like a slap. He sat up straighter, studying Victor's face. There was no trace of his usual cold arrogance. Instead, there was a flicker of something Alex hadn't expected. Vulnerability. And you want me to find her, Alex said, his voice cautious. Victor nodded. You're resourceful, discreet, and you have a knack for getting into places you shouldn't. Qualities I need right now. Alex let out a low whistle. Kidnapping's a pretty big leap from the missing cats and cheating spouses I usually handle. Why me? Why not the cops? Victor's jaw tightened. Because the people who took her don't want the cops involved. They're professionals, ruthless ones. If they so much as suspect police interference, Sophia's as good as dead. Alex frowned, his mind racing. Who are we dealing with? They call themselves the Silver Haven, Victor said, his voice dripping with disdain. A group of mercenaries who specialize in high-stakes kidnappings. They've demanded $100,000 for her release. Alex's eyebrows shot up. That's a hell of a ransom. Victor leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Alex's. I'm willing to pay it, but I need someone on the ground make the exchange, someone who can act if things go sideways. Alex hesitated. What's to stop them from taking the money and killing her anyway? These guys don't exactly sound like the trustworthy type. Victor's face darkened. That's where you come in. I need you to ensure Sophia comes back alive. Whatever it takes. Before Alex could respond, Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He tossed it onto the coffee table between them. $2,000, Victor said. Up front. Consider it a retainer. Alex stared at the envelope, the weight of the situation settling on him. He could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken threat that came with refusing a man like Victor Crane. All right, Alex said finally, picking up the envelope. I'll take the case. But I'm going to need more than just cash. I need information. Where was she taken? Do you have any leads? Victor nodded, reaching into his jacket again. This time, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. The last place she was seen was at a charity gala downtown. This note was delivered to me the next morning. Alex unfolded the paper. The message was short and chilling. We have Sophia. $100,000 by Friday, or she dies. No cops. Wait for further instructions. Classy, Alex muttered, folding the note back up. What else do you know about these Silver Haven guys? Not much, Victor admitted. They're ghosts. No paper trail, no known hideouts. But I've got a few contacts who might be able to give you a starting point. Alex nodded, pocketing the note and the cash. All right, Crane. I'll do my best to bring your daughter back. But you'd better be ready to follow through on your end. This kind of work doesn't come cheap or safe. Victor's gaze was steady, unflinching. Do whatever it takes. Just bring her home. As Alex stood to leave, Victor added, one more thing, Ryder. Fail me, and you'll wish you hadn't woken up in my mansion. Alex smirked, his hand on the doorknob. Don't worry, Crane. I've got plenty of reasons to stay alive, starting with that $2,000 in my pocket. With that, Alex stepped out of the room, the weight of the case settling on his shoulders. He had a job to do, and the clock was already ticking. The bus station was a grimy, faded place, the kind that Alex had passed through more times than he cared to admit. The scent of old coffee and greasy fast food hung in the air as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. It wasn't the kind of place where people came to make memories. It was a transit hub, nothing more. But tonight, it was the scene of a high-stakes exchange. Alex stood near the far end of the station, trying to look inconspicuous. He tugged the collar of his jacket up against the chill of the evening air and glanced at his watch. The rendezvous was scheduled for midnight, and as the minutes ticked by, the tension in his chest only grew. He knew the drill. Deliver the money. Get the girl. It sounded simple enough, but something about the whole thing felt off. The Silver Haven, whoever they were, had no reason to keep their word. And with Sophia's life on the line, Alex couldn't afford to let his guard down. He shifted his weight, checking the shadows around the corner. Ethan Ford was supposed to meet him here. They had set up the exchange in the most public place possible to avoid any funny business. But that didn't mean Alex trusted Ethan or these kidnappers any more than he had to. They weren't friends. He was just another tool in their game. A sound behind him made Alex stiffen. He turned, seeing Ethan's familiar silhouette against the flickering lights of the station. Ethan moved toward him, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable as usual. You're late, Alex said, eyeing Ethan. Ethan didn't respond right away. He just nodded, his gaze flicking over Alex's shoulder. You brought the money. Alex pulled a thick envelope from his jacket and handed it over without hesitation. Ethan took it without so much as a glance, slipping it into his own coat. Now, where's Sophia? Alex asked, his voice low. Ethan didn't answer immediately, and for a brief, heart-stopping moment, Alex wondered if this whole thing was a setup. But then Ethan nodded toward the far end of the station. They're waiting over there, he said. Alex felt his pulse quicken. Ethan's lips curled into a brief, tight smile, but his eyes were hard. Don't worry about it. Just follow me. They moved in silence, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the hollow space as they walked toward the exit. Alex's thoughts raced. This was it. If everything went according to plan, Sophia would be safe. He'd keep his end of the bargain and walk away with a clean conscience. But there was a nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach, a feeling that something wasn't right. As they neared the corner, he glanced toward the platform, half expecting to see a familiar face. But instead, all he saw was a man in a dark coat standing next to a young woman. The girl, Sophia, no doubt, was dressed in a black hoodie and jeans, her face partially obscured by her long hair. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Sophia's gaze was filled with both fear and relief, and Alex's heart gave a hard thud in his chest. He was so close to getting her out of this nightmare. But before he could move toward her, something unexpected happened. A young man, no older than 20, stepped out from shadows, and in one swift motion, grabbed Sophia's arm and pulled her toward the bus. The action was fast, too fast for Alex to react. "No!" Alex shouted, his voice breaking through the silence. But it was too late. The young man yanked Sophia toward the bus that was just about to depart for San Francisco. The door closed with a hiss, and the bus started to move, pulling away from the platform with alarming speed. "Damn it!" Alex cursed, instinctively starting to run toward the bus. His legs burned as he pushed himself harder, but the bus was already picking up speed. "Wait!" Alex shouted, but the bus didn't stop. Ethan stepped forward, blocking Alex's path. "It's over," he said flatly, his voice detached. "No, it's not over," Alex snarled, trying to shove past Ethan, but the bigger man was too solid, too unmoving. Ethan's hand shot out, gripping Alex's arm. "You think you're going to catch up to them?" He let out a humorless laugh. "You won't even make it to the next stop." Alex's blood boiled as he fought to break free of Ethan's hold, but there was no use. He watched helplessly as the bus pulled away, taking Sophia and the young man with it. "Damn it," Alex muttered again, his voice barely a whisper now. He felt a sharp pang in his chest. Guilt, frustration, and helplessness all crashing down on him at once. Ethan's grip loosened slightly, but his tone was still cold. "You did your job. You handed over the money. They wanted her on that bus, and now they've got her." Alex didn't respond. His mind was racing as he watched the bus fade into the distance, swallowed by the night. He felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. This wasn't the outcome he had expected. He had been so sure that once the money changed hands, Sophia would be safe. "Why?" Alex finally asked, his voice hoarse. "Why did they do this? Why let her go now?" Ethan shrugged, a shrug that spoke volumes. "Who knows? Maybe she's not the one they want. Maybe she's just a pawn in a bigger game." Alex's mind churned, trying to make sense of the situation. If Sophia wasn't the target, then who was? And why go to all this trouble just to let her slip away? "We'll find her," Alex said through gritted teeth, his eyes narrowing. "And I'll make them regret this." Ethan didn't say anything. He just turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the silence of the bus station, leaving Alex to stand alone in the dim light, staring at the empty platform where Sophia had just been. As the echoes of the bus faded, Alex made a promise to himself. He wouldn't stop until he had answers, until he had Sophia back safe and sound. The game had changed, and now it was personal. Alex's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as the headlights of his car sliced through the foggy night, the familiar rhythm of the road beneath him doing little to calm his racing mind. He had followed the bus for hours, watching the tail lights flicker in the distance, but with each passing mile, the traffic became thicker. The fog rolled in, dense and suffocating, obscuring the view. It was like the city itself was trying to swallow the truth. The bus had been gone for far too long, and Alex had lost it somewhere near the Golden Gate Bridge. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel in frustration. "Damn it," he muttered, his breath fogging up the windshield. Where the hell did they go? The chase had been relentless, a blur of car lights and thickening mist. He'd thought he could catch up, thought he could get Sophia back before it was too late. But now, after all this time, all he had was uncertainty. He tried to shake off the dread building in his chest. He couldn't afford to stop. Not now. The young man who had been with Sophia, the one who had grabbed her and whisked her away to the bus, was just another piece of the puzzle. Who are they, really? The Silver Haven? Alex knew very little about them, only that they were involved in this twisted scheme. But the real question was why Sophia had been part of it. Why had she staged her own kidnapping? Alex's mind kept replaying the events of the bus station. The moment when he saw Sophia's face, full of fear and uncertainty, but also a flicker of something else. Something that didn't quite add up. What was she really doing there? What was her role in all of this? He couldn't ignore the feeling that he was missing something important, something that could unravel the entire case. His phone buzzed, the sound sharp against the silence in the car. Alex snatched it up, praying for a lead. It was a text message from Ethan Ford. "Meet me at the school. Silver Haven. Alex read the words twice, his pulse quickening. The Silver Haven was a school. He had been expecting something far darker, but this. It didn't make sense. A school for underprivileged children. What did that have to do with the ransom, the kidnapping? And why would Sophia, of all people, be involved? Without wasting another second, Alex swung the car onto the exit ramp, heading toward the address Ethan had sent. The city lights of San Francisco blurred as he sped through the streets, his mind working overtime. He couldn't help but feel that he was about to uncover something that could change everything. The school was located on a quiet street, nestled between two rows of crumbling buildings. It looked out of place, its white walls almost glowing in the dark. Alex parked his car across the street and got out, his footsteps quick and purposeful as he approached the entrance. There was a faded sign above the door, Silver Haven School for Underprivileged Children. He stopped, reading the words slowly. He had to admit, he wasn't expecting this. He had imagined something much more sinister, perhaps a hideout, maybe even a warehouse. But school. It didn't make sense. As he walked toward the front door, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Ethan, standing with his arms crossed, his face hard and unreadable. "You found it," Ethan said, his voice low. "I wasn't expecting this," Alex replied, glancing up at the building again. "This is a school." Ethan nodded. "A front. They've been using it to hide the kids they take in. The Silver Haven isn't just a group of kidnappers. They're a network, a kind of organization that offers shelter to kids who need it. But it's not what you think." Alex frowned, not sure where this was going. "What do you mean, it's not what I think?" Ethan's expression hardened. "You'll see. Come on." Alex followed Ethan inside. The building was silent, the air thick with a strange sense of unease. They moved down a narrow hallway, the walls lined with old, peeling photos of children and families. It didn't feel like a place for criminals. It felt like a home. The smell of old books and chalk dust lingered in the air, and for a moment, Alex almost forgot why he was there. They reached a door at the end of the hall, and Ethan pushed it open. Inside was a small, dimly lit office. And sitting behind the desk, looking every bit as out of place as Alex felt, was Sophia. She looked up as the door opened, her face softening when she saw Alex. There was no fear in her eyes now, no distress. Just calm, almost as if she had been expecting him. "Alex," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "We need to talk." Alex stood frozen in the doorway, his mind spinning. "Sophia, what the hell is going on? Why are you here? Why? Why did you fake your own kidnappings?" Sophia's eyes softened, but she didn't stand up. Instead, she folded her hands on the desk, looking at Alex with a quiet resolve. "I never meant for you to get involved, Alex. This wasn't supposed to be your problem." Alex took a step closer, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "You put your father through hell. You scared everyone. Why? What was all of this for?" Sophia sighed, her gaze drifting to the window. "You don't know anything about me, Alex. You don't know what it's like to be stuck in a world where no one gives a damn. This school, this place, it's my escape. These kids, they're like me. They're forgotten, abandoned. I had to do this to get the money to keep it running. I thought the ransom was the only way." Alex's mind raced as the pieces began to fit together. Sophia wasn't just a victim. She was trying to help these kids. So the whole kidnapping was a setup? You planned the whole thing? Sophia nodded, a shadow passing over her face. "It was the only way to save this place. My father would never understand. He's always been about power, about control. But this school, it means more to me than anything. I couldn't let it go. Not when there were kids like me who need it." Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to digest everything. He had walked into this expecting a typical kidnapping case, but now everything had changed. The Silver Haven wasn't just a criminal network. It was a lifeline for the forgotten children in a broken system. And Sophia had risked everything to protect it. "So, what now?" Alex asked, his voice quieter now. "What happens to you?" Sophia looked up at him, her expression vulnerable for the first time. I don't know. I never thought I'd have to choose between saving the school and saving myself. But I think it's too late for me. I just hope the school can survive." Alex stood there, torn between the law and the truth of what he was hearing. He had been sent to find Sophia and return her to safety, but now he wasn't so sure. Sophia sat quietly, the weight of her decision pressing down on her shoulders. Alex watched her carefully, his gaze never leaving her face. There was a sense of urgency in the air, and yet Sophia's calm demeanor only deepened the mystery. She didn't seem scared or anxious, just determined, resolute. It was as if she had already come to terms with the consequences of what she was about to reveal. She opened the drawer of her desk slowly, her fingers trembling as she pulled out a thick file, the edges worn and frayed, as though it had been handled many times before. She placed it on the desk between them, pushing it toward Alex without saying a word. Alex raised an eyebrow, leaning forward slightly. "What's this?" he asked, his voice low but tense. Sophia met his gaze, her blue eyes steady. "It's everything. Everything you need to know about my father, Victor Crane." She paused, a shadow passing over her face. "He's not who you think he is." Alex's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "He's a billionaire. He's well known in the city for his charitable work. People admire him." Sophia shook her head, her lips pressed into a tight line. "It's all a facade, Alex. He's been involved in shady dealings for years, laundering money, dealing with underground networks. You name it, he's probably been involved. But he's been careful, covering his tracks well. I've been trying to gather evidence for months, trying to get enough to report him to the authorities." Alex reached for the file, his fingers brushing against the edge of the manila folder. The weight of the documents inside was enough to make him pause, as if the very action of opening it would unlock a much darker truth. Sophia continued, her voice quieter now, tinged with a mix of regret and anger. "I never wanted to be part of any of this. But when I found out what he was doing, when I realized how far his reach went, I couldn't just sit back and ignore it. I tried to confront him once, but he didn't take it well. He didn't want me involved. He threatened me." She paused, her lips trembling slightly. "So I had to leave. I had to get away from him. But leaving meant leaving everything behind. My life, my family, my identity." Alex flipped open the file, scanning the first few pages. What he saw confirmed some of his suspicions, but there was so much more than he had imagined. There were bank statements, wire transfers, names of people he recognized as criminals, and several photographs of Victor meeting with unsavory figures. It was all there, proof that Victor Crane had been living a double life. And worse, he had been using his power and wealth to manipulate and control everything around him. "I had no choice," Sophia continued, her voice cracking slightly. "I knew the only way to expose him was to gather enough evidence, but I couldn't do it on my own. So I staged the kidnapping. I knew he'd do anything to get me back, and that's why I made sure the ransom would be enough to keep the school running. I couldn't let him destroy everything I've built for these kids." Alex put the file down, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this was bigger than anything he'd expected. Victor Crane wasn't just a businessman. He was a criminal, a manipulator who had used his wealth to build an empire on lies and deceit. And now, Sophia was asking him to take down her own father. He met her gaze again, and for the first time, he saw vulnerability in her eyes. "So, what do you want me to do with all of this?" Alex asked softly. Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I want you to turn him in, Alex. Report him to the police. He deserves to be held accountable for everything he's done. But I can't go back to that life. I can't go back to him. Not now. Not ever. I've found something real here at the school. Something worth fighting for." She leaned forward, her voice firm despite the pain in her eyes. "I want to stay here, with kids. I want to help them, make sure they don't end up like me, stuck in a life they didn't choose, controlled by people who only care about their own power." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. He had always admired people who fought for what they believed in, but this was different. Sophia wasn't just trying to save herself. she was trying to save others. She had turned her back on the comfort and security of her life to give children like her the chance she never had. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked quietly. "You're willing to give up everything for this place? For these kids?" Sophia nodded, a determined smile forming on her lips. "Yes. I've made my choice, Alex. I've seen the damage my father has caused. I can't let him keep running things from behind the scenes. He's ruined too many lives." Alex stood there for a moment, the weight of her request hanging between them. He had to make a decision. Sophia had just handed him the evidence he needed to bring Victor Crane to justice, but it would be a long, difficult fight. There was no guarantee that the police would take it seriously, especially with someone as powerful as Victor behind all. He looked down at the file again, then back at Sophia. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll help you. I'll get this evidence to the right people, and I'll make sure your father pays for what he's done." He paused, his eyes softening. "But you don't have to face this alone, Sophia. I'll be here. You've done something good, something real. You've found your purpose, and I'll make sure you get to keep it." Sophia's face broke into a relieved smile, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know who else to turn to. I didn't know if anyone would believe me." Alex placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "You don't have to worry about that anymore. We're going to take him down, together." As they stood there, the weight of their shared mission settling in, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for the woman before him. She had taken an unimaginable risk to protect these children, to protect the very future she had once been denied. And now, Alex was going to do everything he could to help her bring her father to justice, no matter the cost. Alex sat quietly in the dimly lit room, his thoughts racing. The decision he faced weighed heavily on him. He had always prided himself on being a man who operated by a code: justice, truth, and honor. But in this case, the lines had blurred. Victor Crane was a powerful man, a criminal mastermind who had built an empire on lies, and his own daughter had brought him down. But Sophia wasn't asking for revenge. She wasn't asking for anything more than help to escape the life her father had trapped her in. Sophia, still sitting across from him, watched him with hopeful eyes. The weight of her secret and her plea hung in the air, delicate but firm. "Alex," she said softly, breaking the silence. "I need you to promise me something, please." He looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "Anything." She took a deep breath, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "You have to keep my location a secret. I can't risk my father finding me. If he does, he'll drag me back into that world. I need to stay here, with the kids, to help them. I'm not asking you to lie, but please promise me you won't tell anyone where I am." Alex didn't hesitate. "I promise. I'll keep your secret safe. No one will know." Sophia gave him a grateful smile, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Alex. I know this isn't easy for you, but I can't go back to him. I can't let him control me anymore. This place, it's everything to me now." Alex nodded, his heart heavy with the realization that Sophia had given up everything for a cause she truly believed in. "I get it. You've made the right choice." He stood up, pulling the envelope with the $2,000 out of his coat pocket. "Here. This is for the school. It's the ransom money your father paid. You can use it for the kids, to make sure they have what they need." Sophia reached for the envelope, her hands trembling slightly as she accepted the money. "You're giving this to me? After everything that's happened?" Alex's eyes softened. "It's not about the money. It's about helping you create a future. You're doing something good here, Sophia. I want to help however I can." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "You don't know how much this means to me." Alex turned toward the door, the weight of his next steps settling in. "I'll take care of the rest," he said. "I'll make sure your father and Ethan are held accountable for their crimes. I'll report everything to the authorities in Los Angeles. You don't need to worry about that anymore. You've done the hard part." Sophia gave him a final, heartfelt smile as he left the room. The door clicked shut behind him, and for a moment he stood outside, taking in the quiet of the night. The cool air filled his lungs as he made his way back to his car, his mind already running through the steps he needed to take. He was going to bring Victor Crane to justice, no matter the cost. Back in Los Angeles, Alex wasted no time. He delivered the evidence Sophia had given him to the authorities, and it didn't take long for the police to act. Victor Crane, along with Ethan Ford, were arrested within days. The documents Sophia had provided, coupled with the testimonies Alex gave, were enough to ensure that the law would finally catch up with them. Alex had done what he had set out to do. As the case progressed, Alex received a call from a detective at the Los Angeles Police Department. "Alex," the detective said, "we've got Victor and Ethan in custody. We've gone through the evidence, and it's solid. We couldn't have done it without you." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction settle in. "I'm just doing my job. You guys handled the rest." The detective chuckled. "Well, you deserve more than just a thank you. We've got a reward for you, a $2,000 check for your efforts. It's the least we can do." Alex paused, his mind flashing back to Sophia's gratitude to the money he had given her for the school. He had no need for the reward. He had already received something far more valuable in the process: the knowledge that he had helped Sophia, that he had helped give her the chance to start over, to build a future. But there was one thing Alex knew for certain as he hung up the phone. He had just solved the most rewarding case of his career. Not because of the money, but because he had made a difference. The satisfaction he felt wasn't from the reward or the recognition, but from the way everything had come together. The truth had been uncovered, and justice had been served. As he sat in his office later that evening, reflecting on everything that had happened, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The case was closed, the criminals were behind bars, and Sophia was free to live her life on her terms. It had been a messy, complicated case, but in the end, the right thing had been done. He leaned back in his chair, staring out the window at the lights of Los Angeles twinkling in the distance. There would always be more cases, more mysteries to solve. But for now, Alex was content. He had made a real difference, and that was enough. And as the nights stretched on, Alex knew that he had found a new purpose: helping people, uncovering the truth, and ensuring that justice prevailed. This was what he was meant to do. He had become more than just a private detective. He had become a protector of those who couldn't protect themselves. For Alex, the case was over. But for Sophia, it was only the beginning of a new life, one she had earned through courage and determination. And that, Alex knew, was worth everything.